Hi, this is a podcast dedicated to role models on your doorstep here at the University of Leeds. This is a project funded by Research England through the Enhancing Research Culture stream. We wanted to create a platform to share relatable and inspirational stories from colleagues from a range of cultural backgrounds, sexual orientations, roles, and career stages. I'm Jacki Willson, an Associate Professor in Performance and Gender in the School of Performance and Cultural Industries. And today I'll be talking to Dr. M Maniam, who is a Teaching Fellow in TESOL. Now, I've just confirmed what this is. So this is teaching of English to speakers of other languages. And I'm sure Uma will talk more about that because I think it is completely relevant in relation to what she's talking about today. And she is part of the School of Education here at the University of Leeds. So Uma's going to talk about her own professional development and share her experience and perspective as an international member of staff with us. So hello, Uma.
Hello, hi Jacki.
Thank you very much for coming today. So I'm going to run through a few questions with you, and then we'll probably go sort of slightly off so that we can have some personal questions today, and it's going to be about 20 minutes. So I really look forward to speaking to you. So can we start with, can you tell us a bit about your role here at Leeds?
Okay. I'm actually a teaching fellow in TESOL, as you mentioned, is teaching English for speakers of other languages, and I'm based in School of Education. I've been working here for the past 3 years in a more fixed kind of position, and prior to that, I was actually doing my doctoral studies in the same School of Education. So in other words, I'm actually a product from School of Education, and I'm also proud to say I'm now part of the team, in the teaching team.
Well, can you tell us a bit about that was your PhD, is that
Yes.
right?
So I did my doctoral studies in the field of middle education, which I used to work back there in Malaysia, and I used to take up some leadership roles. And being given a job as a leader back in Malaysia, it just felt like you just don't know what you're doing, and you just felt like there's so many challenges. And that's when I decided that I should try to understand more in depth about leadership roles in higher education. And that's when I started to, find out more through my doctoral studies.
So you were in management in Malaysia.
Yes, I was doing both. I was doing teaching as well as leading at the same time. So I worked as a head of department for one of the higher education back in Malaysia. And while I was actually going through that role as a leader, I just felt that leading and teaching is two different things. You can't master both at the same time. So doctoral studies gave me the opportunity to find out more about the challenges, to become a middle leader. So there are different levels of leadership. So my role was more into the middle leadership. So which is, it is not it is not on the administrative role, but it is just slightly above, which is the middle position. I call that as a sandwiched role between the top most management and those below. So that was actually what I did for my doctoral studies. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And it'd be interesting to hear maybe about how that experience comes into your role as well. That in terms of that PhD and your experience in Malaysia. So thank you. So could you tell us a bit maybe about what you enjoy about your role and being at the University of Leeds?
To be honest with you, the most interesting thing that I felt taking up this position as a teaching fellow is back in Malaysia, I used to meet a lot of Asian students. They come from different parts of Asia. And when I started my teaching role here, I began to meet not only Asian students, but I also began to meet students from different parts of the world, those students from European countries. And it feels like sometimes it's a very good opportunity for me to share some of my experience being a student back there in Malaysia, and also being an international student in the UK. So I can actually share with my students my perspectives, being a student from Asian country and also being a student who did a doctoral studies in the UK. So there are two different perspectives that I'm able to share with. I think the more I share with them, the more they feel comfortable that I am also a person who's not just an educator, but also someone who had similar experiences which they are going through. So I think I kind of able to contribute and able to understand their position as international students or students from different parts of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of shows the importance, doesn't it, of your perspective and having international members of staff,
Yes.
working at Leeds, because then they can understand as you can understand and relate, and they can relate to you, and then there is a kind of more of a sense of belonging, isn't there? Then?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so can you tell, I think you've said a bit about this, but in more detail, maybe tell us a bit about your life journey before getting your job here, and how this has informed your work and professional development.
Well, to be honest, I started my, I would say, my journey to the UK in 2014. And at that point, I had to travel alone to the UK because, honestly speaking, it was kind of difficult financially for me to travel with my whole family. By the way, I've got two children, and my husband was working in Malaysia then, and my kids were very young. They were 3 and 5 in 2014. And it was a big decision I had to make because I was very strong about making decision for my career, my future career. And at that point of time, it was really tough for me to decide because, as I mentioned, financially, I had to make decision. Am I doing the right decision of studying abroad? And lucky enough for me, I had this support from my family members, and I had some savings for me to come and do my studies in the UK, and got the opportunity to do it in University of Leeds and also some other universities that I applied for. But I felt very difficult. It was heavy for me to leave behind my two daughters just to come and study for 3 years. And within 6 years of, within 6 months, sorry, 6 months of my journey in the UK, my husband decided that he's going to look for a job in the UK. And lucky enough, he got a job. My kids were ready to travel. And just after 6 months, they joined me. I do feel if they were not with me in the UK, I would have struggled because I always had that, that earning for me to meet them, and it wasn't the same as talking to my kids, looking at the video call. It's very different. That 6 months was really a struggling month for me. As soon as they arrived, things changed. I was so motivated, and my family was there with me, and the support my husband gave me for me to pursue my studies. And I think that journey started, in a very difficult way. But then now, when I think about it, I've completed my PhD in 2018, and I took up some part-time position in School of Education since 2018. Then I secured a job, and here I am talking to you, sharing my thoughts with you. I'm really happy and very proud of this journey.
And you're a permanent member of staff now, aren't you?
Yes,
Full-time
I am now.
permanent. So
Yes.
it paid off, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I became full-time permanent a year ago. So that's
Oh, well
really a
done.
happy
That's
news.
fantastic. And it's, and I think it's not spoken about enough, actually, the kind of what you have to do in terms of the sacrifices, I mean, I did that too when I had very young children. I had to get a job in London. I was living in Nottingham, and I
Yeah,
had to leave my children behind, getting on with things,
yeah.
So I don't think it's spoken enough about, those kind of sacrifices that we feel that we need to make, isn't it, in order
Yeah.
to secure a stable future,
The emotion that you've got to learn how to control the different emotions while you're studying, because financially that's a different feeling, but when you're all alone and you've left your home country, that's a big sacrifice. When I had so many friends and family members, they were not really very supportive, to be honest, because they said, you're leaving your home country. You had a very steady job here, and you might be struggling in a new country. And I said, this is a risk I'm going to take for the future of myself as well as my family, especially my children. So, well, it was a bold decision, but I'm really happy that I made it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering. I know that just as an aside, are students allowed to bring family members in terms of a visa now? Because obviously, because the significance and the importance of that support structure,
Yeah.
um, you know, I'm wondering if that is that allowed now?
It
That
is
family,
allowed now,
yeah.
Jackie, but I think it depends on the salary threshold, how much
Uh,
income is the parent earning. So yeah, we can do that. But I think when I first came in 2014, it was really difficult because without a steady income or a permanent position, it was very hard for family to bring, their children. So that I think in that case, I was lucky because uh, I think my husband secured a job, but it's not the same now. I think the immigration rules are also changing from time to time.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So the stories actually, are important, aren't they? In sort of understanding people's situations and sort of the support that you need when you come to a different country. Thank you. Okay, so I think that we've sort of touched on this about the idea of your greatest challenges and barriers and how you overcome these. Would you say that that's related to what you just spoke about, or is
Yes,
there
definitely.
something else? Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, what I've mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so the next question then relates really to the dance, that you did for recently for the
Yeah.
Women's International Day, and you were also part of the panel. And I wanted to you to tell me a bit about the significance of that, about sharing this aspect of your life and heritage for the event and how that impacted on you.
Okay. Well, we spoke about 2014 onwards. I didn't tell you, all about myself as a Bharatanatyam dancer. Bharatanatyam is an Indian classical dance, originated in the south of India, and my great grandparents were actually from South India. And sadly, we don't have any connections anymore, and that's perhaps my parents lost touch with our great grandparents' family. So I've always admired Indian classical dance, and for me, I felt that whenever I'm down, when I need to, control my stress or my problems, there is only one way to overcome this. I like to dance. So as a young child, I started learning Indian classical dance when I was 6 years old. Lucky for me that some very talented dancers from India, they used to have lessons in Malaysia when I was young. So I took up Indian classical dance from the age of 6, and then, well, I studied kind of different grades of the Bharatanatyam. I've completed all the grades, and I also completed a teacher training to teach Bharatanatyam. And well, I never had the opportunity to perform ever since I came to the UK. And when I came across, I think it was on Teams, there was this this information about International Women's Day and some stories about the costumes. And I thought, oh, best costume I could display and talk about is my Indian classical Bharatanatyam costume. And that's when I contacted the team and I became part of the team. And to be very honest, I was quite emotional looking at my Indian classical costume, which I didn't wear for the past 15 years. And that day when I did the performance on the International Women's Day was the time that I think I could really feel the inner satisfaction that I couldn't express, ever since I came to the UK. Because although there are different types of dance that I've been watching in the UK, but I did feel that I know this dance, that dance that I've learned ever since I was 6 years old, but I never had the opportunity to show my talent. And I think it was one of the best experience I had in the UK, thanks to you and the team as well.
Oh, it was just such a good day, wasn't it?
Yes, and
Thank
it
you
was
so
one
much for
of the
doing that.
best
Oh,
experience I could ever, talk about in my lifetime.
oh, I'm so happy. I'm really. It felt really special, didn't it? It was,
Yes.
and yeah, thank you so much for having done that. Um, And on the back of that, then you're talking here about this kind of acknowledgement. Can you say a bit about what belonging means to you, and what more perhaps the university could do to make sure that international colleagues feel more acknowledged and more recognised?
Yeah, and I think to answer to that question, I believe that each and every woman, we do have some of our interests, our talents, and I do find that sometimes it's important for the university to recognize talents, not just from the research or the academic background, but I think there are some women out there, or any employers, irrespective of gender. Everyone has some talents that, well, to some extent, it could be a hidden talent, but for some of us, we have the talent, and we just don't have the right platform to showcase our talent. So perhaps it'd be good if the university could recognize what are the areas that the employers can actually contribute. So the more they understand the employers, I think the better it is for everybody in a different field to know that, oh, there are going to be more people who can involve in different activities or different projects. Like, for example, the project that probably you are involved, it's going to be very helpful for women out there who have different talents, who come from different parts of the world. So I think recognizing this talent is so important, and there must be maybe a kind of networking or collaboration projects for people like myself to be part of those interesting projects and activities. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, so can you tell us about one or two memorable moments in your professional or personal life?
Well, apart from what I just mentioned
Yeah.
today, I think the day in which I've got my permanent job or permanent contract, I must say, because it was a very emotional day for me, because I've been waiting for that moment of getting a full-time permanent contract for a long, I think for probably 3 years. And I was always thinking, am I going to leave this country? Because now my children feel that this has become their second home, and it's really hard for me to think about going back to Malaysia, although Malaysia is always home for me and my children. But to be honest, my kids came here when they're very young, and they can't even speak my national language now, which is Malaysian language. So it's going to be very hard for me to bring my family back and start all over again. So the day when I received an email from the HR team saying you are now on an ongoing permanent contract, that's definitely a memorable day. And apart from that day, I think every time I get an email from a student who has completed their studies, whether it's an undergraduate course or a master's degree, it's really a very special moment, when you receive emails from students saying, I've now completed and you have contributed a lot in the success. I think that's also something I can never forget.
Oh, thank you very much, Uma. So, final question. Are there any particular aspects, qualities, or traits about yourself that you feel particularly proud of and can share with us?
I think I have lots of confidence in myself. I do feel that sometimes it's really important to try. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a risk taker. I try to take risk, and I don't always think that taking risk is bad, because some people say, oh, risk, the word risk itself sounds very negative. But I think if you don't take the risk, we wouldn't really understand what we have learned in life. So I think I have the confidence in order to do anything, especially when I'm ready to do anything that people say, oh, it's risky, but I'll say, let me try. So I think I have that one particular quality in me. I'll do it, and then we'll see what we can do after we take the risk. And I'm happy to say that women out there, anyone who's listening to this, it's okay to take risks sometime. And I think whether it's good outcome or a bad outcome, if it's a bad outcome, you've learned something from it. If it's a good outcome, I think it's moment to enjoy.
Thank you. And I was going to say, how do we know when it's right for us to take that risk? Do you think that you just think, oh, I just need to do it. I really want to do this, whether it's going to work, or is it that time when you just think, just do it?
Yes, yes. I think it is just the inner self. You would feel that I need to do it now. If I don't do it now, I will never do it. So that's how I decide. If I know that it's going to be risky, but then if I know if I don't do it, I would regret, I'll just do it.
Yes, it's the regret thing, isn't it? Knowing that,
Yeah.
looking back and thinking, why did I not take that opportunity or even try?
Yes, yes. I'll be happy to try than telling people I didn't do
I
it.
didn't, but I didn't because I was scared, or I
Yes.
didn't, yeah. And or other people were saying, oh, that's a bit risky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's paid. Oh, thank you so much for joining us, me today, as part of our Role Models on Your Doorstep podcast series. It was a pleasure hearing about your story as an international academic member of staff. So this
Thank you
has
so
been,
much, Jackie.
thank you. For those people listening in, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you for your interest, and please drop in and listen to the other stories we shared as part of our #warm or We Are Role Models project. Thanks again, Uma.
Thank you.
Okay, and speak soon, and goodbye for now.